So, for you who have booked or are thinking about booking, I wanted just to show you what we'll be using for the mini soul plan. So this is one that I had put up on my page about a week and a half ago, and I was asking people to guess, who do you think this personality is? So it's a global celebrity. This is their soul plan, and we had fun on my page with people kind of guessing. Now, I didn't give them any clues at the start. What I did is I showed them the worldly challenges. So in case it's quite small on your screen, I'm going to read you the section, because when we do the mini soul plan readings, we're going to focus on the worldly challenges and the spiritual challenges, and then do a very quick overview of some of the other components. So very quickly, if you've not seen a soul plan report before, this is what it looks like. So you've got we start with the worldly challenges, look at the worldly talents, your worldly goals. So this is kind of, what are you here in the world to do? Typically from the age of 0 to 35, 40. That's when you're figuring out what the world is about. Who are you? What are your skills? What are your talents and the things that you do naturally? What are the goals? What do you want to pursue in life? And what are some of the challenges you may need to overcome in order to fully step into and realize who you are? We've then also got the spiritual side, and that doesn't suddenly mean you get more spiritual and sit on the top of Mount Shasta. I think of it in terms of almost like the hierarchy of needs, where you've satisfied some of those initial things and now you're broadening your horizons. And again, we look at the spiritual challenges, your spiritual talents, and your spiritual goals. And then what sits in the center of that is your soul destiny. So let's see if you can guess who this one is, if you haven't already played the quiz on my page. So the worldly challenges is 17.8 for this person. So potential attributes, because it's all about potential and possibility. There'll be times where it always happens when people are doing a full soul plan reading, I send them a PDF of their report. They will read through it, and people often say it's like looking at their whole life laid out on 5 sheets of paper. And then jokingly, when we do the one-on-one session, because you get a copy of the report and then we work together one-on-one, either by telephone or online. And I'll say to people, so which of the challenges resonate, or highlight which? And people say, I've coloured it all in. However, there are often 2 or 3 things that really stand out for people. So with this particular global superstar, it says in terms of their potential attributes, their worldly challenges, when they are in their power, let's say, they've got great confidence, they're potentially good public speakers, their media talent, unerring belief in that which they choose to express, politician energies, capacity to teach, and loyal to a cause and others. Some of the possible challenges they may experience in order to really come into their own: experiencing the polarity of mastery to slavery, often attracts subservient roles, lack of desire to relate, could be underachieving and failure orientated, feelings of unworthiness, heavy repressed emotional baggage, held back from full expression, appears detached yet ungrounded or cut off. Emotional toxicity can manifest physically, feels unworthy to be oh gosh, that just landed quite differently. Sorry, I've just had a thought about one of the illnesses they've had. Sorry, anyway, we'll come back to that maybe. Feels unworthy to be a healer. Hearing difficulties may ensue if cuts off from listening to new ideas. And potential limiting beliefs: I must submit to others. I am a slave. I am not as good. I'm more messed up than others. I am useless. I have too many issues to be of value. I am unworthy. So, any thoughts at this stage who you think this celebrity is? We're also going to very quickly whiz down to the spiritual challenges, because you get a little summary for each. You've got your worldly goals there, for example, but let's see the spiritual challenges. So adaptability to society, emotional, these are the potential attributes. adaptability to society, emotional intelligence, sensitive, nurturing, grounding, clairvoyant, sees into people, can change energy to relate to anyone. Possible challenges: highly ungrounded, stuck in head, resistance to being here. Ooh, they actually wanted to do an assisted suicide a few years ago. Resistance to being here, escapist, over analytical, letting go is a real challenge, preoccupied with the past. They've said that their past gives them nightmares in the interview I was reading 2 weeks ago. Psychic cause, martyr tendency, over involved in others' worldly problems, commitment phobic. Oh my God, they got married at a very, well, for the second time, a very late age. Commitment phobic, right hand issues, hand not extended to engage. And the reason I'm kind of laughing at that one is metaphorically, the whole big part of this story centered around their engagement. So that's why reading it made me smile. Potential limiting beliefs: I am not meant to be here. I am trapped in a body. Feelings will trap, overwhelm, kill me. I am, a part of me is dead. I must reject my body. The earth is hostile. Very interesting, because I've just seen just reading it out loud, a few other things have landed that I know about this particular person from their public persona, that is. I don't know them personally. So their soul destiny: channel, healer, clairaudient, possible challenges, disempowerment, mistrusting, disconnection with the spiritual, blocking of power, misuse of power, controlling, not trusting their own channel, seeks wisdom of others, victim mentality, overly dramatic, oh geez, hold on, what was the operation they had? Hold on, because I didn't notice that before when I there was something in here about a particular big operation, which is when they considered the assisted suicide. It's quite a long article. It's a very good article. Let's see. I'm going to see if I can find if it was the kidney. That is a little bit freaky. Bear with me a moment. Talk amongst yourselves for a second. I'm just looking. Let's see. Yeah. Oh my God. So they considered assisted suicide. The chances were slim. Oh my God, I've got goosebumps. Without a kidney transplant. Whoa. Okay, let's continue. So kidney issues, not filtering own truth. Wow. Oh my God, that is insane. That is insane. Okay. Right. Well, where was I? Soul message. So to soul purpose summary: to acknowledge that a core stability and protection are your birthright, to align and connect with full soul awareness and become totally connected with divine truth. Oh my God. Right. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to read you some extracts from this article. So I'm going to start where I was because it's right near the bottom. They say they were diagnosed with kidney cancer. I faced two choices: either regular dialysis or a kidney transplant. So where it's talking here about if you're not filtering these issues, I'm not saying just because you have emotional stuff going on, it's going to manifest physically. We're just talking about potential and possibility and what's happened. And this is what it says. They said, considered assisted suicide as chances of survival were slim without a kidney transplant. Now, there's a piece in here about, we talked about the mastery and slavery. So let me go back to this piece here because it's really quite interesting. Let's see, where she actually talks about not wanting to belong to someone, not wanting to be someone's property, not wanting to be owned by someone, and that whole mastery and slavery thing. Really, really fascinating. So they had an instant connection, which is fab. Whew. Okay, so here's a piece. They, even after they'd left their first married, they were haunted by constant questions about the ex, and it actually haunted them. Their now partner says, even in now we're getting closer. You might have guessed who it is by now, so I'll start giving you a few more clues. Even in their 60s, they still had nightmares about their first marriage because it was so abusive. So when we're talking about the mastery slavery piece, this is one of the things that we most know about this particular person, because all of that then started to play out in the public domain. It was a really big court case, and that has been one of the dominating factors of their life, which is why people always wanted to talk about it, why they couldn't leave it alone, why it was still coming up in conversations, and it was so traumatic, which is the reason why 40 years later they were still having nightmares about it. So it's just really fascinating, and even if you don't know who this person is, personally, from what they have shared themselves in the public domain, it's really fascinating when you look at someone's soul plan and then you look at the life that they have led and what they've been through. Really, really, wow. So here's the piece I wanted to read you about the master slavery thing and marriage. So they've said, and they were in their 50s at this point when they made this statement. The marriage proposal was made. They said, I don't have an answer. It wasn't yes, it wasn't no. I was wary of feeling controlled. Marriage says ownership. I don't want that my anything anymore. I had enough of that. So really interesting, because they were like a slave in their first marriage, to the point where they left with nothing, not even their assumed name. So if that isn't the mastery slavery, I don't know what is. So I would love to hear your thoughts. Who do you think we are talking about here in terms of this? And it's really fascinating, because if you go back and look at the story of the marriage, there are references to feeling, in terms of things I've seen over the years, references to feeling like a slave. They were subservient. They had no power. They were amazing and brilliant, but being held back in terms of being able to achieve because of what that marriage had done to them. So where we talk here about the heavy, I'm looking here, I don't know if you can see my cursor, the heavy repressed emotional baggage, held back from full expression, their first partner completely held them back, controlled everything they did. And where it's talking about here, if these issues are not resolved, the emotional toxicity can manifest physically. So when we look all of these years later now to the kidney issues, which is mentioned in the soul plan, potentially there could be a connection between those two. But really, really fascinating when you get into it. So what we're going to do with the mini soul plan readings, I'll be going through your worldly challenges, looking at some of those limiting beliefs, going through your spiritual challenges, looking at some of those spiritual beliefs, and then we'll do, depending on how much time you've got left and how chatty people are, we'll also very quickly just tell you a bit more about the worldly talents, the worldly goals, spiritual talents, spiritual goals, and have a look at what's in your soul destiny. So the mini readings are 30 minutes. A full reading is 60 minutes, but I always say to people, allow an extra 15-20 minutes just so we have a bit of time for questions. So typically the full soul plan reading is 60 to 90 minutes. I'm doing these 30-minute taster readings, mini readings. These are the sorts of things that you would do at festivals and shows. And as this November is my soul plan anniversary, I completed my soul plan practitioner training in November 2013, and I completed my soul plan instructor training 2 weeks ago, so it's a double anniversary. I thought I would offer some of these mini readings for anyone who wanted to do one. So they are very limited in number because it physically takes time. We're going to be doing this one-to-one. So as you'll know, my schedule is I don't really have very much room in my schedule at the moment. I haven't for the last year and a half, 2 years. So I'm doing a limited number of these. So I released it to my e-newsletter list at the weekend. I've now just yesterday put it out into the public domain for a few days. So if you would like a mini reading, what I'll do is I'll put a link in the comments description wherever I put this video. So there's a link where you can book for for the next couple of days. It was £49 for those on my e-newsletter list and £69 for those in social media. So 49 was just over the weekend. So it's now £69 for the remaining sessions. And if you wanted any further information about the soul plans generally, go to my main website, transformationstm.com/soul plan. So that's TRANCE, F for Freddy, so FORMATIONS, as in trademark. So transformationstm.com/soul plan. And that's where you can book a fuller reading outside of this offer for November, the next couple of days. Anyway, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. Put your guesses in the comments. We'd love to hear who you believe this is, just from the little bits that I've told you. And the bit where I was saying reluctance to engage, this particular celebrity didn't get married until very, very late. They were, semi-engaged together, very reluctant to say yes to the engagement based on the really traumatic experiences. So there are times where what's said in the soul plan is kind of metaphorical as well. But that whole thing about the spiritual goals, harsh self-control can lead to physical rigidity and decisive denial. Interesting. Anyway, I could keep going because these are eternally fascinating. And one of the things clients always say about the soul plan reports is they will go back to them years later and they are still relevant. And at first I was like, wow, that's so weird. And it's like, hold on a minute, this is about your whole life. So it's a really interesting retrospective because people will recognize, particularly the worldly, because often I'm working with people in their 40s, 50s, 60s. So they've been through that worldly process and so they recognize it retrospectively. Many of them are through it. Some of them are still in the thick of it. They haven't yet resolved those issues. So it's fascinating on both levels. Then they'll recognize where they are. And then years later, they'll go back and look at their soul plan report and they'll actually recognize, be like, oh my God, when I first did my soul plan readings, that was interesting. Then they go back and look at it again. I've had this experience myself, something that was interesting when I first saw my soul plan report in 2013. Looking at it 5 years later, it's completely where I was and something immediately stood out because that's the part in terms of the soul journey, the spiritual journey that I was now at. So I say keep the report, or in this case the link, use it, refer to it, because it will speak to you on so many different levels. And the lovely thing is when you start stepping into those potential attributes, that's one of the easiest ways to start to reduce the challenges. And in the fuller soul plan reading, there are specific self-help things that you can do free of charge that don't cost anything. And there are also recommended specific therapies for each of the different 22 aspects of the soul plan. So that's something you can get more into as well. So it's almost like having a blueprint of your life as it's been thus far, and also some really good ways to map out the future, look at key areas you might want to develop, and also things that you may want to focus on and resolve. So I'll leave it there. Happy guessing. Let me, if you played this already on my page, don't put it in the answers as yet. Hold back for, there's a thing called FHB, family hold back. I first learned this term, I was working at a big corporate and there was a very important delegation of people coming. They'd ordered this fabulous buffet and they came into the office and said, oh, it's an FHB event. And it was like, oh, okay. And I was new. I was like, FHB event, what's that? People like, huh? And somebody said family hold back, as in all of the staff can't rush in and devour the buffet and not leave any for the guests. So FHB, the guests eat first and then the family come in politely afterwards. So, hold back if you've already guessed and I've told you it's correct. Love to hear your thoughts. Anyway, really looking forward to working with those of you who have booked a mini soul plan reading. Over the next couple of days, on the booking form, there's an option where you can choose the ideal date that you want. So I'm now going to go through my calendar, start doing that later on today, start scheduling those in so that you know when your session is, and hopefully the date you've chosen is a date I'm free. If it's not, you will be offered an alternative. Right, Marilyn Devonish from transformationstm.com/soul plan, over and out, and happy reading, happy guessing. Catch you all later.